thank you everybody for coming to January's open studio visit. And I'm starting off with a PowerPoint just because it's easier to maneuver from the PowerPoint to my easel, which is already set up. But I wanted to just go over a few things with photographs because we're talking about perspective in the landscape. And the view you guys have really is one that has some man-made object structures or the trees, the way they're planted, the vineyards, the vines, the way they are planted, that actually creates the perspective for us. So it's a little different when you're painting and there's no houses, there's no gates, there's no paths, there's nothing that's man-made to help us identify the perspective easily. But there are things that you can do. So that's why I'm starting with this one. And also, I get to share a couple of photographs from my trip to California. So, anyway, um, in here, we can see where the key points of perspective are because we have a drive, we have the trees that are all planted. A lot of times they space them correctly. We've got uh, the vines for the grapes that are going up the hill. So that in itself create. Oh, and somebody's got uh, their speaker on. So everybody just check that you've muted yourself, okay? So with this one here, we have man-made objects that help us. And a couple of points that I want to show you is think of, we were taught horizon line. Think of your eye view line. That is more important of terminology because we don't always have as such a horizon line to look at. So what you want to do is you want to be able to just shift that in your brain where you're looking for your eye view line. And I'm going to be showing you, when I'm over at the easel, a way that you can identify your eye view line. In the photograph, we can see this is where the land ends, and we see the trees behind, but then also the sky. So there's in our heads we can say, okay, somewhere around here would be the horizon because this is where land meets the sky. Not always accurate though, so I'll take you through that. The other thing we can see, can you tell where I was standing when I took this photograph? By the lines that you can see in the vegetation. Anyone want to take a wild guess? Do you think I'm standing over here, here, or over here?
Um, Kind of straight down. My pointer's going, but if you were in a car, it would be in the passenger seat near the side of the road, but
That's
not on the
exactly
side
where
of
I
the road.
am. You've got it. And I am not standing. I am sitting in the car right here. And our key to this is if we go up and we look here, see the way this row of vines is all straight. It does not start. See the way that starts to move here, starts to move, starts to move. Look for things like that because that's your key. You want to know one, where your eye view line is, and two, where was the photograph taken from? Where were you? If you're looking at somebody else's photograph, where is that point at which the person stands? Because that is where a perpendicular line uh, connects with the parallel line. And this perpendicular line and your horizontal line where is exactly what will show you how you can set up your perspective lines. Okay, so we've got that. And actually, I drew it down here. It was really up there. Sorry about that. But anyway, so we've got those that fall in there, which works out well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to some photographs that have no architectural pieces to them. Here's another thing I wanted to point out. Over here, the trees are far more defined and larger. I'm sure most of you know it. I'm going to repeat some things that are very basic, just in case there's somebody who's a newbie here, or a lot of times we get wrapped up with what we're doing and we forget. Oh yeah, that's right. That's what that is. Things that are near you have more form and shape. Things as they recede wind up merging together, and we lose a lot of times the shapes of individual shapes of those objects because they are all merging. We can still see some of these individual shapes of these trees. I don't know what kind of trees these are. I should know. Are they cypress? I don't know. Anyway, also we've got the which looks like a forsythia, but I don't think it is because of the time of the year. But we have this orange plant that's coming out, and there's more of them along here, but they don't show because of the angles. So perspective in the landscape without structures is really going to be all about knowing where your eye line is and identifying where you were standing when you took the photograph. Those are the two key things. So let's look at the next one. Okay, this one right here. Let me just move this because it is somewhat blocking my view on this end here. Okay, this one here. Um, Again, it's another scene. There's no structures in it now that are man-made, but what's happened is we have these fields where they were planted in rows. And again, I'm standing over here. Look at this row. It's almost perpendicular. Okay, see that line right there? The way it just connects. It's not on a slant. Okay, these lines of the fields, they radiate out. And then what happens? The farther they go away, we no longer see the path, which brings us to the third thing. With where you're standing, it's also what's your vantage point? How high up are you or how low are you? Clearly, I was not sitting on the ground. I would have a totally different photograph if I was sitting on the ground. I'm standing, so I'm looking down at the tops of the tulips, which means, and this is something sometimes people forget about when they paint or draw, is we're seeing the leaves of the tulips and the base of the tulips right where I'm standing because I'm looking down at them and I can see that. The farther they go away, we lose all that detail that we see here because everything, remember, we talked about the cypress and the merging. Things begin to merge and we're no longer looking at them from the same angle. And perspective is all about lines and angles. And you could drive yourself crazy with perspective, but I'll tell you, if you just really always identify, I'm going to repeat this 5 million times, where
Right.
the eye view line is, where are you standing? Okay, I'm standing and I'm looking out here. Okay, this is about where my eye view is. And the way you identify that is one, you can hold something up and you can look straight out, and wherever that line falls, I'm going to be showing you that up. I'm saying it out loud, so if I forget to do it, someone's going to remind me. And that will show you right where that line is. And from there, here's my perpendicular to my horizontal. Okay, and this one here, creating a right angle-ish, and I can verge out from there. Now, there's multiple lines along here because they're not, all these lines are not all merging down here. There's a little spots all along here where you have your vanishing points, where each of these rows are ending. And we only really see them for one, two, if these people were in the way, three, maybe four. And then it gets lost because these lines disappear because the angle we're standing. Now I have the same picture. Oh, nope, I guess that same picture didn't show up. Okay. So that was with straight lines. Curvy lines are a little bit more challenging, and if people have never been to Highfield Hall in the summer, well, it's great any time of the year, but summer they have this sunken garden, and it really is just beautiful. It's a lot of green, so if you want to drive yourself crazy painting green, it's absolutely wonderful because it's like green, green, green. But anyway, it's got this lovely shell path that picks up the light, which can be a little overwhelming. So we're going to talk a little bit with this picture about not only the linear perspective, but what happens when we paint and we use a little bit of atmospheric perspective. So paths, what happens is we can have our straight paths like we saw before, or we can have a path that is curvy. What happens is the closer the path comes to you, the more of a curve that you will have. Of course, this one here, the plants are like that. I'm talking about this one because I'm afraid I might not have another photograph that comes up since I Oh, yep, good. There is another one. So what happens is this area, even if this is as wide as this, as wide as that, it's going to narrow the width across, okay? That's going to narrow as it goes back. This part here is smaller than that, larger than this. This is smaller than both of them. So when you're drawing your path, think of that same receding idea that each of those shapes becomes smaller. Now, a lot of times what happens is people have trouble with their paths lying flat. And what that has to do is the angle of the curve, okay? Look, well, this is not the ideal one for this because this is been trimmed this way, so it actually is a curve. But there, you're going to see more of a curve here. And if you think of an ellipse, if you're holding a cup and you're looking straight down into the top of that cup, we see a circle. As we start to move that cup away from us, that circle starts turning into an ellipse, and the shape and size of that ellipse starts to compress. That's the same thing that happens with paths. Things start to compress. This one doesn't even look as though it's got a curve to it at all. This one feels like it does a little bit, but this one we can really see a sweep. And I'm hoping the photograph that I have for this is going to show up. When it comes to atmospheric perspective, what we want to do is we want to take, have in our mind that idea that as we are looking at objects that are near us, those same colors that are farther away from us are going to change. Even though I have a green um, shrub in front of me and the same type of green shrub is farther away, that green is going to look differently because as things start to recede, they lose their intensity and they get duller. They start to cool, and the value contrast starts to narrow. And that's because when we don't see it, the air, but there are particles in the air, and all the color we see is really revolving around how light is bouncing off of things. So that idea of manipulating what we see so that the color shifts creates the illusion that something is going back. Photographs are not necessarily going to do that. This photograph here is not a wonderful example of this because this is in shade and that is in sun. But the reality of it is you would be playing that same sort of idea when you're choosing the colors that are in shade as opposed to the colors that are in sun. And if anyone's got questions, you just ask as we go along, okay? Okay, yep, they got mixed up a little bit. Okay, so back to the tulip field. I had three different pictures of the tulip field. And this one you can see I'm closer to the field. We have less here, and we're seeing more description of the tulips here. But look at how little of that path is showing. So this is why when you're out there, whether you're going to be plein air, painting, sketching, or whether you're going to take photographs, take them from a lot of different angles. And also this one, I dropped the camera down a little bit lower. So typically you have your camera, you have it up to your eyes and you're standing there. Okay, and you take a photograph. Now take another photograph, raise your hands over your head and take a photograph high. Don't tilt the camera down, leave it up. Tilt the camera, see what the difference is. And then do the same by dropping the camera around your waist. So what would happen is you're going to get a different vantage point of what those tulips look like. And sometimes those exaggerated photographs actually create more drama. Okay, this one looks very similar to the last one, and I'm trying to remember why I put this one in. We're just closer. Oh, right. Oh, my vantage point is gone. Okay, see, this is on an angle. I'm out of the picture frame. Okay, so maybe I zoomed in, any number of reasons. Could be standing at an angle. Uh, and I think that's one thing about plein air that's nice is a lot of times I remember more about what photographs I took because then I went and I painted, right there. Okay, so with what I said, is there anything in this photograph that kind of twigs with, some of the points that I just commented on? Okay,
That
so
area of dry grass on the right is pretty vertical. So are you standing over there?
I'm standing over here. Okay. And and this very vertical, perpendicular to my eye view line back here. Okay, that shows me where I stand. Guess what? This is where you should start your painting. Start your painting or your drawing on that perpendicular line so that what you're doing is you're setting up your vantage point from the very beginning. That's going to remind you, okay, this is straight. Watch this, little bit of a curve here, little bit of a, not curve, angle here, another angle here. Okay, the angle here. Notice the way each of these are starting to splay out a little. Now this one here is not going to that. These are both all going to the end of this row where these blue. Was this the blueberry patch? Oh my God, they were the best blueberries. That was from outside Albany, New York, when I was back there a couple of years ago. So this is where you want to begin. You want to start your drawing right there. Okay, set that up. Okay, you get your eye view line down, you get your perpendicular line showing where you're standing, and that's always a reminder that any lines, I suppose you could say they're man-made because they're trampled from people walking on them, but they were, at one point, it was just a grassy path that was there that's gotten burned out from people walking all over it, a lot of dirt in there. So this here, I need to put a little angle here. I need to put a little angle there. And notice they're opposite angles because this is straight. Everything's going to splay to the right. Everything's going to splay to the left on this side. So you would not have straight edges for this painting, this photo. The other thing too is going to add this is the size of things. So the size of the of your objects make a huge difference, and sometimes you have to exaggerate that from the photograph to your painting because it doesn't come across um, in the painting. So, for instance, this here, where the canopy is, that's quite tall. A 6 foot person can stand underneath it. This shrub is not 6 feet, correct? Okay, but in this photograph, this part of this plant is larger than that back there. So you always want to make sure, and this is where the exaggeration can sometimes come in. You want to make it feel like this is farther down the path. So you have to make sure that you draw this larger than that there. That's going to give us that key that, oh, that's a distance down that path. And be selective with when you exaggerate those sizes of the shapes, but it definitely will help creating that feeling of distance. And these back here might have been bigger than this, but they're smaller because they're farther away. The trees back there are definitely bigger. They're smaller. So that goes along with that idea of things getting smaller as they go into the distance. Okay, can you see a marsh?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, there's not a lot of key points in here. Why do you think I put this up? What does it tell us, or what doesn't it tell us that we need to be creative about?
Well, it gives a few clues.
Okay, what are the few clues that you have?
Well, there's a little bit of water, the
Yeah,
shape of a creek of some description over here, over
yeah.
to the left, yeah.
I think the
And
horizon line, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, that's all right. Well, also the size of the weeds or the plume grasses, you can see the distance because of that.
Back
Yeah,
here.
I think the
yeah,
horizon line is
yeah,
incredibly important because it's
yeah.
what pushes everything back. And I don't know if it's your photograph, Betsy, maybe the line is slightly uphill to the left in in real life, I might consider actually like straightening it only because a straight horizon line removes distraction. See,
Correct.
I was
It
slightly,
does.
yeah, but it's that straight line pushes everything back and gives the sense of depth.
Correct. And look at how small these trees are.
Yeah,
Look
exactly.
at how large that is. Yeah,
Yeah.
and those are some key pieces that we yeah, I mean we see that all the time when you take photographs. So this is not like I'm telling you anything that's new. So for this though, there's a few other keys in here. One, can we actually tell where I was standing?
Um, yes, you're looking down at the big weeds, I think.
I am looking down. I am
Yes,
looking down. Okay.
yes,
I'm looking down because what I'm doing is I'm looking down. So I'm seeing the Phragmites, but then I'm also seeing the marsh.
yep,
Okay. So the other thing that's happening in here, remember we talked about the things getting curvy? Okay. Curvy
yep,
shapes back here. Watch this line.
yep,
Okay, as my cursor comes around, look, it's going on an angle, angles, because that is not cutting straight across, it's cutting on an angle. And truthfully, even if it was cutting on a straight line, I would consider putting an angle because what that angle does, that little bit of a diagonal, creates that movement into the back of the painting as opposed to another horizontal line, which is just parallel to that. Then we have horizontal, horizontal. If we have horizontal and diagonal, 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 we're sweeping into the painting. Now, the other thing that is happening here is the little bodies of water that in the foreground are bigger than the body of the water that's back there.
yep,
Okay, and this it could just be, low tide residue that's happening here after a storm, anything like that. Again, think of it and exaggerate it. So we can exaggerate a little bit of that diagonal. We can take these shapes and think of these shapes into this shape here is going to be smaller than this shape here. Okay, get rid of all these little diddly things in there. You're thinking of the big shape. And these two are going to be smaller than this one. So the closer these shapes come to you, the bigger they get and the more rounded they get. Okay. See this is a little flat there? Okay, see the way this is
yep,
starting to round here, and this one becomes even more round if we could actually see down there through the Phragmites. It's a little hint of it. So and this could be a path instead of water. And we would do the exact same thing. They're going to flatten out, and that helps to have them lie down. And when I say flatten, I mean this height right here becomes smaller. The angle here compresses. Remember, I talked about that cup of that you're looking down in, and as you move that ellipse away, it starts to get narrower and narrower and narrower. Same sort of thing's going to happen with that water. And if I took this hovering over it, I probably would have, if I had if I went out there. I think, oh no, I have another photograph that shows that. Forget, I don't have to imagine it. Okay, same location, totally different view altogether. Absolutely looking down, right? Down and out.
yep,
Okay, this one here, I'm just looking out. Like I'm looking out over everything. The only thing that I have in the foreground is this here. So when you're painting, and again, this is all perspective. It's not that linear perspective where we're taking out, our ruler and well, don't try rulers, but rulers kind of tighten us up. But when you're learning, I think they're great. Um, so we're looking down here at this, okay? And then we're just looking through the reeds and right across. And the other thing, what did I do that was different between these two? Where's the horizon line, your eye line? Eye view line, high, low.
oh, that's
So
interesting.
again, when you take photographs, change that eye view line. And I'm wondering if it is, unless I took a lot of slanted photographs that day, Lisa. It does look like there's a slant. So I'm not so sure about that. But again, diminishing sizes, the grass gets compressed. We don't even see details back here. We see less here. We see more here in the foreground. And this stepping sort of thing, this whole shape here, okay, with these grasses in the foreground, is bigger than that. And it could be about the same size as this. And that's where you'd want to take and play around. You don't want the shape up here to be the same as the shape that's back here. And whenever I make something sound like a rule that you can't break, just remember it's just the way I'm sharing information. You can break rules that, it really is depending on what you're doing, what you're trying to express. But just in general, um, if you have a shape in the front the same size as a shape in the back, you're not creating distance. And sometimes different objects that are clumped together, like the trees and the reeds and the dried reeds, they kind of act cohesively together. I think I'm hitting all the seasons on Cape Cod. Okay, so now we have autumn.
Okay.
Okay, so anything of what we talked about coming through with this photograph?
You seem to be looking down a little bit in the front.
Yep,
Some,
looking down a little bit in the front. This is something else a camera do. A camera is going to bring in stuff outside your peripheral vision. Okay, so if I'm standing here and I'm looking straight out, I'm not going to see as much detail as this photograph is going to show. So bear that in mind. Doesn't mean you can't paint it like that. It means you need to, acknowledge from the beginning, well, that is outside my peripheral vision. I probably didn't see it in as much detail. And if you want to create far more interest in the uh, um, painting as a whole, then you don't go crazy with all the detail that you're seeing in the front. That's right here.
interesting. Okay.
Okay, so another thing that we got, yeah, so think of your peripheral vision. Okay, so here, okay, let's look at these bog shapes right here. Okay, curvy, a little curvy, okay, but you're seeing these underneath pieces, getting a little bit of a curve, little bit of a curve. And the farther we go back, what's happening here? It's really starting to flatten out. Look at that. Okay, even these clusters of cranberries, a flat-ish shape. And in the back, we lose it altogether. So it's those shapes that are moving forward and you're seeing more dimension because back here, we're really just looking almost out and over things. This, we're looking out and over, but it's also still close enough that we're actually seeing um, the closest edges to us. Aren't those clouds
Mm.
great?
Yeah, that's a great.
Yeah, clouds take on a lot of the same things that things on. It's just a mirror image. In this case here we have a little flatter area to the clouds on the bottom, and the top is very wispy. Okay, they feel like they're farther away. We're going to be looking at some clouds that are close up. Oh, here's one that's very, I thought the clouds were next. Um, very close. Okay, again. Remember we talked about the diagonals? Okay, we got a nice diagonal here. It starts to flatten out right there, but the diagonal of these guys, you can create your own designs with that. Look at that curve. It's near us, a little flatter farther away. Flatten out. Flattening things out as they go back is a key to making everything lay down. And by laying down, I mean that they're not tilting forward. Again, we're back to that whole idea of that ellipse, that circle flattens out the farther away it goes. Well, this is what happens with here. And then look at this. Isn't that beautiful? I'm just noticing this color here. Okay. Comments on this one? Any questions? Okay.
I love the reflections of the trees in the cranberry bogs.
Isn't that gorgeous? That's
Yeah.
just beautiful. I know. It's just beautiful. And this one, we really see this curve. Look at, okay, and then look at a little bit of a curve, flattens, flattens, flattens. See the way that flattens back there? Even this, the part where the reflection is showing through, where there's a little bit of water showing through the cranberries flat. Look at how flat it is back there. Okay, so that's that's another tip. Okay, not just with paths, but with objects that are in the water, especially since we've got our bogs and our marshes around here. And this reflection it was very calm, a very calm day. Now the blue down here, the blue is reflecting the sky that is overhead. That's a really high contrast there to the blue that's in the sky. So sometimes a camera can make the water that's closest to us, that's reflecting the deep sky, way up high. So play around with how much of that intense blue do you really want in the foreground. Layering colors. The water that's nearest us, we might be able to, in real life, see a little bit what's underneath because these bogs are not deep. So you could have like multi-layers of colors that are in there. Um, Reflections tend to be a little bit duller than the actual objects they're reflecting. If the photograph doesn't show it, tip, just do it because it's not actually a mirror. There is going to be some color changes because it is hitting water and the reflections hitting the water. Okay, and here we have our skies. Okay, and with our skies, okay, look at these, look how thin, flat they are. Okay, so they're starting to round off a little bit at the top. Okay, still staying flat in the back. Flat in the back tends to mean that they're farther away. Okay, and then they can raise up. Okay, look at this one starting to curve. Little bit of a curve here, not a lot. Little bit of a curve. So you're not, what you want to do is you want to vary the bottoms of your clouds so that you get this feeling as if some clouds are receding much farther away and other clouds are coming towards us. And then we have the clouds, the little bit that's up here is like very close to coming over us, and then they're very rounded. So it's kind of like the reverse of what happens on land um, to the sky. No, I think I said that wrong. It's exactly the same thing. Sorry about that. I think that sounded right when I said it. I love this one.
Ooh.
Isn't that a really nice photograph? I really like
Yes.
that one. Okay, this one here, low eye view line right here. I should have mentioned this too. When you're doing like we know these curves. Okay, this here, down over, down over. The one that's nearest you is the one that's going to curve. Okay, the other ones can curve a little, but you don't want them to look like they're rising out of the water. Okay, you lost it here, and look at this, the billowing up. Lots and lots of curves up there. But look at the bottom of it, pretty flat. That's far away, coming towards us. I don't know if that's one of those clouds my husband says, oh, I think we're going to have a storm. Okay, another low. You're trying to focus on the clouds, you drop the horizon. So that eye view line that you have here becomes very low and it gives you a lot of your sky. And again, very horizontal, horizontal. Okay, a little bit off. Look at the way this cloud here. Okay, curve, 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 curve. So focus in on which clouds are farther away and which clouds are closer to you by that whole idea of being pushed off and it's receding and it's flatter coming towards you and it's curving. Sometimes we have to make things up, okay? And this one here, you could increase the drama in this photograph using some of the things that we talked about. And does anyone have an idea of maybe what they would do to kind of create a little bit more of depth of the field of this photograph?
Say again?
From what we've talked about, is there anything you would do to create a little depth in the field, in the marsh?
Hmm.
You could create a path. You could create a house in the back that's smaller.
Yeah, yeah. The path right off the bat, we have just a little bit of a sweepy one over here. Okay, you could bring that a little bit more into the picture frame. Okay, and the fact that see this one, it's not really, it's curved right here, but see the way it's flattening out on that side there? Okay, bring that in a little bit here. Okay, you can take these areas right in here where there's the snow. Okay, and you can exaggerate that sort of, remember you talked about that diagonal, the diagonal coming in, sweeping up over here. Use your contrasts. Clouds. This idea of having color shifts, very cloudy behind that. Something was going on with the weather that day. But you know, avoiding that very horizontal background all the time. Sometimes having this sweeping come in like this, you could exaggerate that like a little bit more so it's a little bit sweepy. And yes, if you wanted to include the building itself, you know, clearly we know these trees are not bigger than that building back there, so that building creates a little bit of the feeling of distance between where we're standing and where that is. Anyone else? Oops, sorry. Okay, these two, I'm going to show them in tandem. That's the full photograph. Okay, your eye view line out here. Is there anything that's compelling? Not really. Okay, change it around, crop it in. Okay, and we have this again, there's that zigzaggy, that diagonal feel. This could be very different if this was a horizontal line right here. Okay, even some of these, you could add a little bit of a angle to them and look at how little it is. A lot of times we're standing there and we know that the water is it's the same width of a channel. And of course, this is not man-made, so it's going to be all different widths. But by always making sure that the water that is nearest you is wider than the watermarks that are in the background, have them narrower. And then we see even with that little path over there. This one was a good one in terms of, because of the type of day it was, it does have that aerial perspective, not aerial, sorry, atmospheric perspective in terms of the colors back here are duller, they're cooler, and there's less of a value contrast. Okay, we've got value contrast here. Okay, these definitely feel warm, a little bit of cool in here, but definitely warmer. Colors are more intense. We're seeing a little more green. Back here, everything really has. So you can just, incorporate that, not into every single painting. It's not going to make sense. But, getting used to your colors and how they sit next to one another can make a difference to creating that receding feeling.
Betsy,
Okay.
just out of curiosity, where is that taken? Where was that taken?
The original photograph probably has a name on it. I am not sure.
Okay.
I think if
Is that
feels like,
Fort Hill? Is that Fort Hill?
um, I don't go up there a lot, but I suppose it could be Fort Hill. It could
Hmm.
be.
Okay.
I don't know Fort Hill well enough to like the land in the distance. That's what's stopping me from guessing it because it's not just looking out to the water. Could be Fort Hill though. It's that kind of atmosphere. I mean, landscape there. Very pretty though, isn't it?
It is.
Okay. Not a stellar photograph, but it's a good example of using shapes to create that feeling of foreground and background. You know, the grass that we're speeding by, the field that's very large, the trees and the buildings that we can hardly see that are small and way off in the distance. And there's something in the field that actually helps us create that illusion of a perspective. Does anyone see what that is?
I'm liking the photo, and my thought is I want to be creative and would have thought that if I wanted to paint this because it's got such a great red barn, put some dramatic clouds in there.
You could, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the two things you would do is one, adding clouds, absolutely. We've there's nothing in this landscape that shows that you can't have clouds. You just want to make sure they're off in the distance because clearly, if you make clouds that feel like they're coming forward and we have no shadows of clouds on the land, it's not going to make any sense. But
Right.
clouds off in the distance, you can see there's a little patch right there. Um, what you always want to do though is you want to make sure that if this is what you were really keen on, uh, using clouds that are going to draw away from the your main area because you mentioned the red barn.
Yeah.
You just play around with softer edges, maybe clouds that are a little bit more wispy, clouds that are going to, because you don't want it to feel like it's a curtain back there. You want it to feel like it's part of the whole landscape. So remember that really billowy one? As beautiful as it was, that one here, because it was very subtle shifts of value, could potentially go, that was really a water cloud. I don't know if they have those clouds, to that degree there, but yeah. You could do that. You just try not to take away from the idea of the house if that's what you were, the red barn, if that's what you were really interested in. Way off in the distance we see the cool colors of land that's way beyond there. That would definitely be something to keep in here. And you've got some of the lines that are showing up. Look at this. Look for things like that in your large fields because that's going to give a sense of, again, a sense of perspective when you see these lines. And this is clearly not one that is actually being farmed at the moment, so it doesn't have like the ridges that we saw with the tulip field.
You could,
I
if you
love
wanted to
the
make it interesting, you could take that kind of dull colored barn and silo and have like a super bright red barn. I don't know if you follow, her name's like Ramona, I don't know, Youngquist or something. She does these oil paintings with these beautiful fields and then some little house way in the background, like that's a bright color. It would
Yep,
completely change this. It would take you in your eye right to like that barn if you made it like really bright red. It could be
correct.
interesting.
Yeah, it could be. It's the same with the clouds.
Yeah.
And that's why doing those preliminary sketches and even like little color studies, try it with the cloud, try it with a brighter red barn, try it with wispy clouds, and just do quick little studies. You don't have to expend a lot of time on them just to say, how is that going to work? Does it make my painting feel cohesive? And you're trying to create this one here has so much potential to it, even though there's not a lot in it. It's just we've got big masses of blue, big mass of the ochre, and we've got the big mass of the green. And there's not much. You could even take in just this little slice of color back here. I would really have fun playing around with. So sometimes these photographs that don't present themselves as being as anything that's as such paintable really can lead your imagination. And that's why something like this is handy. But I would definitely be exaggerating some of these lines that are here just to
so
have that feel. Yeah.
Betsy,
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you would do with those grasses in the foreground, if you would include them. And I mean, are they also helping create the sense of the field or
Yeah, I think
they're,
they are. I would, and I would just leave it almost, for lack of a better word, abstract and simple. I
yeah,
would not, I would have, think of it more as the color that is in the foreground.
yeah,
Um, and you can tell I was doing it from a moving car because,
yep,
because it's actually blurred. But I think that that lends itself to creating a foreground that kind of contains the painting, but in the same sense is so loose that it's not like this has got a real edge to it. There's not a real
yeah,
edge. It's really loose. It's almost like
yeah,
these start to blend a little, you know. But yes, I would keep that in, partly because of
yep,
this diagonal.
yeah,
Yeah. The other thing too is you could take these and you could say, okay, well, I'm gonna have my field. I don't know how that would work. I'd have to play around with it. What if I had the lines here? I don't know. I had the lines here. See these lines that are here? Try them in different places, see if it works. It's gonna change. This makes it feel like I'm here, which is about where I am. What would happen if I had taken it when I was here? Would I have seen more of those lines here? I don't know. Give it a try. Okay, so this is just a planting, but I took it because, it was a really nice example of how shapes and sizes, clearly they're plants, they're not all the same size, but they were all pretty much similar sizes. I'm looking down on this guy, I can see the top of him. I go farther away, I see a bit of the top, but I can't see this side. See that? It starts the same thing. You take that cup, that box, anything that's got a shape to it. And what happens if you put it farther and farther away from you? How does that shape change? If anyone's doing one of those January challenges, they have to draw something a day, try that. Take an object, put it right in front of you, then keep moving it farther and farther away. And how does that shape change? So that in itself is perspective. Objects overlapping. We don't even see the full shape of the objects back here. And they wind up getting pretty small. And guess what? They were all about that size, but they just don't look it because they've diminished in size as they've gone backwards. And they're all on this really kind of crazy. Clearly, they were planted, but why do people plant in straight lines? Plant in straight lines. But anyway,
Also, the top is moving. That circle on the top, it's moving
yeah.
back. So you don't see it the entire, it becomes more of an ellipse as it goes back.
Oh, yes, 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 it does. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This here.
Yeah.
Yep, 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 yep. This one's facing us, so that one looks a little bit more
Yeah. Yeah.
circular.
Yeah.
But see these here?
Yeah.
Yep, they're on top. So that's that same idea I said with the cup for all different things. A
Yeah.
cup or a glass is a really great tool to practice. Really
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
It's interesting. Yeah. Very.
Okay, okay, so this looks like it could be really boring. How could you turn this into something fun for a painting?
Hmm.
You're like, oh my God, seriously, Betsy?
Well, you could
Maybe
have like really cool, you could color the rocks, make it kind of crazy.
Yeah, you could color-wise,
Yeah.
perspective-wise. What could you do?
but you also need a path, I think. Some kind of a
Yes.
some kind of a trail, perhaps.
Yeah, have some kind of a path or trail. And guess what? A lot of these rocks have fallen into patterns. Look at this.
hmm,
Okay. Look for when you have a photograph like this that looks like a total jumble of things, like where are you finding? Of course, there's the land has ridges. Look at there's a ridge here. Okay. Exaggerate that ridge, have a flat area, a path next to it.
You could have
So,
your son hiking up the mountain.
what was that?
You could add your son hiking up the
Yeah,
mountain,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
maybe
That's
like
right.
almost to the top, or
Yes,
really
exactly.
small.
Little tiny person.
Here's Ethan.
You can exaggerate the size of the rocks in the foreground. You can make them a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, so take a photograph that doesn't look that great and try to figure out where can I put paths in there? Where can I put diagonals? Where can I show like a rounded area next to a flat area? And then it's always about when we talked about looking down on objects and looking down at that cacti. In this case, it's the same thing. We're looking down on the rocks that are here. And I think the next one's the last. Is the next one the last one? Again, it's size. These guys are in the foreground. They're going to take up, look, they take up this much of this whole part of the painting. Okay, and then just changing the sizes. And then that is actually a mountain off in the distance. That is Joshua Tree Park, National Park. Think of where the light's hitting. Okay, all that, the light falling over here, hitting the tops of this, and hitting the total top when we're near this, looking at it. So we have the sun over the entire area. Oh, I have another. Oh, and there's the path. This is the last one. This is our little lovely path. Okay, so this is following a lot of those different rules. Oh, shoot. A lot of these different, I shouldn't say rules. Oops, let me move that back just a little bit. Okay, that's lying flat. See, that's flat back here. Okay, it's starting to curve. Okay, this is a bit of an angle here. Look at the angle. The angles wind up becoming much wider towards the front. Now this, of course, opened. The path opened at the end. If otherwise, we would have had some of the vegetation that was coming out here. But vary that. Think of not everything is flat. Look at this. Okay, painting those strokes that give you angles. And when we think of linear perspective being just a tricking the eye into feeling as if we are moving through the landscape, that is always what you want. And this right, or being part of the landscape. This here, okay, this is a little pivotal piece right here. That is, why would this be so important? This little corner right there.
Change of direction.
Yeah, it is absolutely a change of direction. The other thing too is you could give too much of a curve and it could feel like a mound. You could give too little of a curve and it would widen this. So what you want to do is you want to always be thinking of this is where the path has turned and this is the land and the path is actually behind it. Okay, this is not the edge of the path. The path is behind it. So that's cutting into the path. And if you need to just create a little bit more of an angle there that's curved, then bring that in and up so it looks like you're just going around an issue. See this an issue going around the edge of that path. And it's very flat back there and rounded by there. And I think that's that. So I'm gonna stop this. I'm just gonna go over since I said I was gonna show you, and I'm gonna just turn to me. And I'm gonna move over here. Oh, I know what I have to do. Let me go like this. There we go. Okay. So I already laid this out here. So I'm just going to, I noticed that just gonna bring that up down just a little bit. Oops. Okay. There we go. Okay, so these are the key things, and I'll put them in the newsletter that you get. Okay, it's number one, know your eye view line. Okay, you used to call it a horizon line. You are now going to call it an eye view line. It can either be low, so low eye view, eye line view. It could be high. And they're going to give you totally different perspectives as the land. Okay, if they're high or whether they're low. And you saw a variety of photographs. Go through your photographs. Identify, okay, how do I feel if I look at a painting that has a high eye line view? How does it feel if I have a low eye line view? Those are two really important things. Now, the next thing was, and I'm going to just put this as, a typical somewhere around the third mark there. this is exaggerated. Those exaggerated ones are a lot of fun to do. Okay. Where am I standing? If I am standing here, taking a photograph, okay, any line is going to be perpendicular. Okay, so what happens is let's say I am at I'm somewhere and I'm trying to create the feeling of a path. This is where the wide part of that path is, and any line on this side is going to come out like that. Any line on this side is going to come out like this. And this is assuming they're all going to the same spot. You could have multiple vanishing points on one line, but if it's one object, one path that's going back, I can create that variation, kind of a very, very narrow. So notice that in your photographs. Take out your photographs and look for, can you tell where you were standing, where somebody else was standing? Tell where the photographer was. Okay, this is like number one. Always know your eye line view. Okay, where is that? I'm just going to show you how you do that. Okay, you're out in the field. You're going to be my big head. We're scrolling in here.
Betsy, I
Okay.
put a link in the chat for Brenda Boylan. I feel like she's like a pastel artist who gets so much less credit than the guys, right? When we think perspective, we think like William Schmeider or, your buddy there on Colorado, Desmond. They're all great. But her city work is fabulous. And she also has an interesting life story. Like, I think she left home when she was like 14, like her mother was super crazy. And she literally had like $14, went to the airport, called her father. And here she turned such adversity into being, I think, a fabulous artist. So
She is.
I just,
Isn't she from like Washington or something?
yeah, I just put a
Yeah.
link to her
Oh,
cityscape
perfect.
collections on her
Perfect.
website because she does really nice perspective work. Like Nancy Mertz King gets a lot of credit. She's good too, but it's
Right,
nice
and
to
that's
kind of look at
not
folks
to
that are,
diminish what you're saying, but
yeah.
the main part of this was talking about perspective that doesn't have structures in it, because
Oh, okay.
that's what I'll do another one on with structures.
Yeah, true.
That's a lot
Yeah,
more involved in this,
yeah,
but because we have a little bit more flexibility, because
true.
it's amorphic shapes of the land as opposed
Yeah,
to uh, right angles, straight
yeah.
angles of buildings. But to find your eye view line, if you're looking out into the landscape, I'm not going to tell you how to do it with buildings, but I'm going to tell you how to landscape, is wherever you are, it's the middle of your eye here. So wherever you are, you just take, I don't know if it's going to translate, filming me this way. Ooh, you want something that's a straight edge. That's not a straight edge, it's a brush, okay? Straight edge, hold it up, okay, look at it, and wherever you don't want to see the top of this, and I don't want to see the bottom of it, I want to see it flat, okay? And that will tell me that's where my eye line is, and that's what I meant when you take photographs. If I'm taking a photograph like this, that eye line view is always going to be there. If I hold my camera, I don't even know if that's showing up. If I hold it up high, it's going to be up here. If I hold it low, it's going to be down there. So play around with taking photographs different, but find yours first, okay? And that just hold this, I think I in plein air classes, I'm handing out those bamboo skewers. They're perfect for this, okay? And then your perpendicular, when I talk about where you're standing, that is going to directly crisscross, okay? And that's a right angle, okay? It's your perpendicular line. That's where your view is. That's where you're standing when you took that photograph. It's going to show up in some things we saw, like things that had paths, didn't show up readily in that one with the marsh. And I had it was a close up and I was looking down at the marsh. I'm not going to see where I was very well with that. That's going to be a real feat to figure out where I was standing. but on a path or by water, anything at all where you can actually see where the perpendicular line is, that's where you're standing. And those are two really great things that help set you up for your for perspective, because this is all about making everything make sense. Your clouds, okay, that are in the distance, they tend to be flatter. Okay, as they come closer, they get curvy, and then they get really close, they get really curvy. So you wind up with varying types of clouds. That's a lousy drawing, but hopefully it made sense. And then your path, we'll just divide this in half. Path, similar things that what we talked about is down here where we're nearest. This is where it's usually tends to be wider, and we have, I don't know if we want it, and remember we talked about little angles going back, have hardly any ridges back here, and then it's going to get wider here. So it looks like it's flat, and that goes along with when you look down at a cup, you have a circle, okay? Looking at the cup on a different angle, you have an ellipse, and looking at it farther away, you have less of an ellipse. And that's the same sort of thing that happens with clouds and with paths or waterways, is it changes from being, well, it's not a circle, but looking at it in a flat shape to ellipse. It compresses, it flattens itself out, and that's what keeps it lying down in the landscape. Just I crammed a lot in there. Is there hopefully I covered a variety. One person started this whole idea, thank you very much. And then I had a couple other people I spoke to, they had some more ideas of what they wanted to know. So hopefully I hit upon everything.
It
Any
was
questions?
great, Betsy.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
Thank you very much. It was
Yes,
excellent.
thank you, Bets.
Oh, good. Glad you
Really
enjoyed
helpful,
it.
Betsy. Good to see you again.
Love it. Mhm.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you guys
Thanks,
came, and
Betsy.
seriously, if you have any specific
Very
topics,
informative.
I mean, this was perfect. Someone had a topic, and I was able to get more information, and then we rolled with it. And if you want to do, I mean, this is landscape perspective. It's far more fine-tuned when you start adding in fences and buildings and sheds and chairs, all those things, interiors, a lot of perspective. It's great. It's a lot of fun. I've mentioned it before, but the Urban Sketcher's Guide to Perspective is a great sketchbook because they take it from the point of view of an artist and not a draftsman. So, great examples, and it's a great little pocket-sized book. So have a look for that one. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, yes, that's what I was going to say. Pastel Painters winter workshops are out. Nancy King Mertz, I believe, is doing a workshop, and a lot of hers do revolve around painting cityscapes, a lot more perspective. So check that out. And I believe she's also doing for the Central Mass Pastel Society, she's doing a demo, and I believe that one's on perspective. So those two things are coming up.
I only belong to one pastel society, and I picked Appalachia because
Oh,
I figured they were
okay.
nicer people. They are
yeah.
way nicer. They are excellent. Every other month, they have a demo by a fabulous artist, someone
Yeah.
like her. And then after that, from like 1 to 3:30 p.m. as a workshop, it's like 50, $60 to take the class, which is reasonable. And they've had everyone from Lana Ballett to Nancy to, you name it. I think of all the pastel societies out there, it's one of the best values for the money because literally every other month they have an artist demo for an hour and a half, and then they have a little workshop in the afternoon that's very affordable. And
Good to know, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
and especially with the having the capacity for online, we have so much
Yeah.
more that's at our doorstep.
One of the
But
things-
for the
yeah.
two that are near us, we do have
Yeah.
Central Mass and we have the Pastel Society.
Yeah,
nearby.
What I like
So-
about Appalachia is they're not like hierarchical, like they have a social hour for half an hour beforehand, and you don't feel like, oh, when the president speaks, everyone should stop talking. Like it's like egalitarian, like everybody is almost like on the same level,
Right.
you
Well,
know,
I found that, I think a lot of pastel societies tend to be, quite friendly and welcoming. So wherever you
I guess I
are,
had bad
and you
luck.
don't even have to live anywhere near it. You can find the
Yeah.
one that that
Yeah.
makes a connection with you, and that's
Yeah.
perfect. For
Yeah.
more things on that, and if anybody does want me to at some point do something more with actual perspective, then I'm more than happy to do that because I do like.
Yeah, you're good at it. Yeah, your brain is like built for it. I struggle with it, so
Yeah.
none of my
So
things.
there's tips you can do, and one of them is trying to avoid relying on a ruler. To tell you the truth, that's it. That's where things get tied up. So anyway, this will be in the notes. I'll snap a shot and I'll put that in there so you have it. And we'll let's see. I'm trying to think. Yes, I will be doing next Thursday from 5 to 7. I'm doing a paint along, and that is going to cover.
Good.
In one painting, not everything, but it's going to cover using both linear perspective and atmospheric perspective for a painting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Betsy.
Okay, thanks so much for coming, everyone.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Betsy.
Jen.
See you.
Next
Happy
time.
New Year.